Hi, Weather Underground blogger Levi Cowan here. You've clicked onto the tropical tidbit for Monday, July 6th. Finally, the NHC named this. Look at that. This is former Invest 94E here west of Mexico here. Oh, it's not going to let me draw on this. I thought it would. Anyway, you can see there's an eye feature that it's trying to develop here. And the funny thing is, yesterday it had this really nice closed circulation. It had plenty of convection. And it should have been a tropical depression since yesterday afternoon, early yesterday afternoon. And it was a tropical storm last night. They waited too long and it burned them. And now it's a 50-knot tropical storm and strengthening fairly rapidly, or at least gradually throughout the day. And I don't understand why they didn't name it. They had a really well-defined circulation, plenty of convection. Organization would have been their only excuse, but I don't know. If it had been any more organized than that, it would have been a tropical storm already. So it's skipped depression status now. So they waited too long. Anyway, outflow looks great from the equatorial side. Looks very nasty to the north. There's this big high right here is still ruining poleward outflow channels for East Pacific systems like we saw with Andres, which puts a serious cap on their intensification potential. This thing is going to strengthen very nicely for the next 12 hours or so as it moves off this way before it moves over cooler waters. There's cool SSTs right north of this line in here, and it's very close to that boundary now. And because of the poleward outflow limitation, it's not going to be able to strengthen past a certain point, and these systems seem to be able to make it, well, Andres made it to Cat 1 before it dissipated. We'll see where this one gets. It only has 12 hours or so, 12 to 24 hours before it starts weakening, but I think it'll make it to a strong tropical storm if it isn't there already due to the eye-like feature and all that stuff. But hey, at least we've got a named storm finally somewhere in the world to track. It's been such a dry spell. Turning our attention to our home basin, the Atlantic Ocean here, 48-hour GFS, shortwave, propagating off this way, long wave trough moving out. There is a surface low in here and a cold front extending down in here. 96 hours, the short wave starts moving out, ridging over the top. Guess what happens? Surface low. On the tail end of this front, let's see, it's more in here. Surface low going to form on the tail end of the front. Most of the models agree with this. This is what happens when troughs start to pull out over the northeast U.S. You get a surface high, you get upper ridging over the top, and you start to get trouble brewing off the Carolinas coast. It's going to form somewhere in this area and start moving off this way. It's an out-to-sea problem. I wouldn't be worrying about it along the coast. But it is interesting that some of the models, including the Canadian and the NOGAPs, try to trap something in this area west of Bermuda in the next 4 to 6 days. We'll have to see how this turns out. We may or may not see something like this try to go warm core. It depends on how much ridging it gets over the top of it and how long it is able to sit down there before. So I'll be keeping an eye on this. It's in this period between July 6th and 13th where I said look for trouble off the southeast coast. So we'll see what happens here. It'll be interesting to see if we can get some kind of a system that tries to cause more headaches for the Hurricane Center on naming warm core systems. We'll see what happens. The GFS is bringing some kind of a wave. This may not be the right wave, but whatever. It brings it in about a week to 2 weeks across the Atlantic. Big hurricane, moves it right in there. Huge ventilation. I mean, the 0Z run, I have never seen this kind of ventilation on a model. It was insane. It was like the worst case scenario. It's a fluke run. The 6Z here shows the same thing, but the 6Z long range hours I think are based on 0Z run information or something like that. The 12Z will likely be different, and I don't put much stock in this forecast until I see many runs lined up at the same time showing the same thing. And we even had that for a while. We had, remember, it had a storm coming into the Antilles for run after run after run right down until it was 5 days away, and it never materialized because all this dry air coming off Africa right now is just shearing, drying the heck out of blow drying all these waves as they come off, and they really don't have a chance until they get all the way in here. So we'll have to watch these African waves, of course, but I'll believe the big bomb storm when I see it, because right now the East Pacific is not favorable for things to come off, ramp up, and become major hurricanes as they come across. I mean, another Bertha just isn't going to happen every single year. Now, what I want to show you is the SOI index. The SOI is calculated by taking the pressure at Tahiti in the Central Pacific and subtracting the pressure at Darwin, Australia. It shows you usually how the El Nino is behaving. Big positive spike in here. You normally want to see it negative in the tank when El Nino is coming around, and it has been negative, and it's now barely positive in here, and I want to show you why. It's all this green stuff, and the atmosphere is fighting El Nino right now. It's bringing all this green further west than it was. You can see the dry air starting to creep from the Atlantic into the Eastern Pacific, which is not where it usually is. During El Nino, you have the upward motion in here, which is why the East Pacific hurricane season gets enhanced during El Nino. Right now, the forecast is for dry air to start creeping into this whole area, and that's a little bit different. You got the green pulse that tries to come across. When the green pulses come across, you've got low pressure in these areas, and so you start to get increased easterly trade winds making a comeback as they try to come back east, and it fights this, and you've got fighting trade winds, and you have a battle between westerlies and easterlies, and who's going to win? The westerlies probably will eventually, because we're really moving towards an El Nino for this year, but it's interesting to see this happen. You never see this graph go up or down unchecked. You always see spikes everywhere. They're always fighting each other. You go up, you go down, you go down, you go up. So we'll likely see this come back down eventually here. We'll see how that turns out. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.